guy here? We'll come back.
Hi. About 4.5 weeks ago, my eldest son, sent me an email link to see this film I've just seen again. And since then, I've spent most of my time on the internet following things.
Steve, please. What's your question? Yeah.
All right.
Time for other people.
Very recently, the world has had some big things with revolutions or the beginnings of revolutions in North America and the Middle East. We've seen what happened yesterday in Japan, and the nuclear explosion this morning. And it's struggling after watching Al Jazeera and now Democracy Now! How we have to develop that way. On the internet, there's been discussion amongst us lot about getting a city going. We need communication first, proper, and to get some proper websites with. I think we have hundreds of chapters. Every chapter should be asked, get a team going with camera, film, and do things. Develop yourselves, develop your abilities. That's what I'd like to do. Work with myself, with the London chapter to do that. And developing skills, I think, is very important. It's the third linchpin, along with resource person-based economy, technology, and human skills, and develop those abilities.
I agree. Thank you. I mean, that's what essentially that we're trying to do. I mean, as far as the city, though, as you mentioned, building the city, building a test city, building something that we can show the world what's capable is the intent. Building an isolated community, though, and shutting yourself off and saying, okay, we have our sustainable, that's not going to fly in the current climate. So I just want to reiterate that if anyone thinks that that's a solution. There's nowhere to hide anymore. It's either the world learns that its survival is contingent upon it learning to work together, or it continues its slow, grueling breakdown.
But just very briefly, because my daughter this morning, when I told her I was coming here, that's run by this guru, this deity, the leader who says there should be no leadership. That's why human development is, for me, the third linchpin of the Zeitgeist movement.
Okay, thank you. Sure. We've got this guy at the front here, he's been waiting a while. I'll come back to you guys.
Hi, Peter. Darren.
Hi.
Pretty much agree with everything you've just said there in terms of how the world's going to go. I've spoken to many people who read, who are intelligent, and a lot of them didn't know who you or even Jacques were. Sure. And he's been around for ages. Sure. So my question to you would be, obviously it would take a catastrophe to get to the point of change. What could you guys do more mainstream, i.e. Discovery Channel, to get this documentary out there, not amongst small groups like this, but mainstream? I've spoken to so many people and they do not know what the Zeitgeist movement is.
Well, I consider, if you really think about it, it's definitely an infancy stage. If you compare our numbers and our reach with, by the way, no heavy monetary contributions, it's all volunteer and independent people doing this on their core, which is very powerful, by the way. But if you compare ourselves to other activist organizations, or what you want to call them, it took them much longer to achieve the audience and the group that we have. So I think from the angle of progress, for what is really only about 2 years ultimately, I think it's quite effective and quite profound. I'm trying to get the documentary on the Documentary Film Channel. I've had communication with various organizations to do whatever I can. And of course, anyone can show the film. I give the film essentially out. Any television station can basically show it as long as they don't exploit it. And I don't require any type of money for it, which is quite an incentive for them because there is an audience and all they see is dollar signs and everything else. But
I guess there'll be a few company owners that have investments in certain places that really want this document on, I would guess.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I guess there'd be a lot of directors, company owners that are capitalists.
Well, that's all they want. This is the system we live in. That's what they see. They see dollar signs. So if they see an audience, that's just the sad reality of it, why they would rationalize it. Unless you occasionally get somebody that's in the mainstream that really believes in it, they can slide it in, which does occasionally happen in certain contexts. But I think the progress is there, and I'm doing the best I can. The movie was made in more of a quote high-budget kind of way, with a much bigger spread to try to appeal to a diverse group as possible. So I'm doing the best that I can. It's really just up to everybody to continue.
So what could we do as individuals? I mean, I work as a recruitment consultant, which effectively is against all the things I'm watching here. but I've started to go into work feeling like I don't really want to do this because it's all about money and profit. What does the average person who's trying to get by?
This is the complex reality. You have to walk a dual line if you believe in this type of direction, because you can't just throw everything down and assume it's going to happen tomorrow. You can't just disregard money and your future. It's paradoxical in the state of mind. So what I kind of tell people is, you kind of have to wear the movement on your shoulder. You have to make it a part of your general life. You have to know that you have to submit to the system. If you have the option, if you're in college, try to do something that has some type of social benefit. Don't do what I was forced to do in advertising for a while. Don't try to stay away from all of the parasitic industries and things that really do nothing at all. There's a number of them. Try to do something in advanced, in programming, things that relate to design computers. Computers obviously are not going to stop in their progression and effect. What we talk about here is very much based on the computational ability to manage the Earth resources correctly. So these are very important fields. So I would definitely recommend that as a general distinction. But to finish that point, just anyway, if you're frustrated, don't try to balance your life, as I try to do my best, between your basic survival and trying to promote something that you feel is important for your future and your family's future, your kids, obviously their future, and realize that it's just a very noble thing to promote in and of itself.
Maybe I'll come and work for you then as a salesman or something like that.
Sorry?
Maybe I'll come and work for you as a salesperson.
There you go. If I had any money to pay you.
Somebody right at the back, yeah? Can we go up to the back then, guys?
Hi Peter, this question relates to the media conditioning. I just want to know how mindful you are of the conditioning effect that your movies have on people who see them, and how responsible you feel in relation to the honesty about how things are likely to change going forwards in terms of social collapse and that kind of thing, and whether it's possible to project a better way to transition, a better way that we can go forwards that could be more acceptable and more humane overall.
Well, I'm not advocating a breakdown. I don't want to see people suffer. I'm beside everything. I'm watching what's happening and reporting what I observe and the research that I've done. So when I explain the collapse in the film, as despairing as it may be, it's simply an observation. And in the film itself, I don't talk about the actual transition. And the ending is a big gesture. It's really this catharsis against this kind of monetary reality and all the things that go with it. But as far as positivity of transition, the sad thing is biosocial pressure is what really influence people in their change. It takes stressors to get people to be motivated one way or another. They can be intellectual and they can rationalize and make decisions, but generally speaking, people tend to maneuver themselves based on what the environment is dictating. So I think it's a natural consequence. First of all, if the system worked, let's put this out there, but if the free market, the free-for-all market as I call it, if it actually worked, then why would I be here? If everything was in balance, then there would be no reason to do anything. The resource-based economy is an answer to the failure of an evolutionarily flawed system. So I see the despairing attributes of the conflict, the instability, as a natural evolution out of this system, unfortunately, which will serve as a motivator intrinsically and inherently for the population to realize that they have to do something new, and that it's time to start looking for new solutions and essentially for a new social system where these things simply don't happen.
Yeah, I agree with the observations. I just wonder if it's possible for us to design a better way for the transition.
Well, I'd love to see it. Sure, I'd love to see other people take a shot at it. I'm doing the best that I can in the way that I think is balanced and just honest. And of course, it's a movie. Speaking of the media quote conditioning, so I do have to generate aesthetic for it through music and everything else to give a sense of emotional impression. But if you break down the data and you read the script, it is what it is. But I encourage anyone out there, all of us, anyone can be a filmmaker now, anyone can do anything in media, to investigate other means, and I'd certainly love to see it. So if you come up with a way, please send it to me. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we're all working on it, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Go to the right again. This gentleman here in the middle, please. No, in the red sweater there, please. Yeah,
in your resource-based economy, there will still be jobs of some sort, whether it's in scientists, technicians, engineers, computer designers, whatever.
Right.
Now, I've got a job, but my next door neighbour hasn't. Isn't that creating inequality? And why should I do the job anyway?
Say the last part again?
And why should I do my job anyway? My next door neighbour, he's doing pottery all day, you know, he's what happens.
Does he have, what, do you have financial support?
Well, you're saying everybody's got abundance.
Well, no. What, if I understand you correctly, the labor that's required in a resource-based economy is substantially minimal than what you see today. And the big difference between what you're doing in a resource-based economy versus what you're doing today, in most cases at least, is that it has a direct social tie. It supports you just as it supports everyone else. So it's a different train of thought. If you develop a value system, all of us have things that we like to do, things that we enjoy doing, and I think many of those things have to do with some type of labor, if you consider it as such. Investigative things. I love research. I read lots of books. I like to invent things whenever I have time to do so. I am certainly happy, I would personally be perfectly happy to run part of the city system just for my own satisfaction to know that it's going to keep the system working, it's going to be efficient, and the appreciation of everyone else. You could exchange the labor where your commitment in a resource-based economy, say in the city structure, would be nominal, so nominal to the effect of just a few hours a week in this rotation that everyone in the society works with. It's about people learning that you don't have to have monetary reward to sustain yourself. We're not that lazy, are we? You know, it's like, I really believe the conditioning of the modern culture is such that people have a knee-jerk reaction now to not want to do any type of labor. They want to get monetary reward for everything on one side simply because the labor is usually irrelevant. I mean, there's a great majority of the occupations out there serve only a monetary and employment function. They don't contribute to anything. People that, the real satisfaction of people in, the real most satisfaction-oriented jobs, if that makes sense, tend to be ones that help people. I know lawyers that have been working for tobacco companies their whole life in criminal enterprises, and they retired and they went straight into pro bono work just to cleanse their soul. You know, there is a natural, I believe in this society, because the pressure for income is removed, because the needs, the necessities of life, the needs of society is managed and maintained. That's the design of society, and access abundance. People will volunteer left and right to want to contribute and to help and improve, because the improvement that they make to the society is an improvement that comes back to them. Self-interest becomes social interest in this type of arrangement. And I think even if you had 40% of the society utterly lazy, you still only need a fraction of the other percentage to pick up the slack. But I guarantee you that they'd be happy to do so.
So you don't think people with jobs and people without jobs would in itself create some sort of inequality?
I don't believe, first of all, that no one would, quote, just not do anything. And I think that people would want to help. I think people would have their artistic, personal interests, but I do deeply believe that in America, one of the most capitalist and self-indulgent and narrow societies